Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast. We are Jeff and Tara Mattson, a husband and wife team who is shrinking the integrity gap in our own lives and helping others do the same. I'm a leadership and organizational development coach, and Tara is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
We believe that if you have a following, you are a leader, and how you lead matters. Whether you are leading in the home, work, or community, we are bringing you biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom to help you in every relationship that matters most to you. None of us do this perfectly, but we are leaning into the reality of our humanity and profound wisdom of grace.
We are excited to announce the new partnership with the Christian Parenting Podcast Network family. Many of you have been a part of our podcast community and remember when we launched the Living Wholehearted podcast in the fall of 2019. Hey, thanks to those of you that have stuck with us, and for those of you that are new, welcome. And today we're so excited about expanding our reach and message of helping leaders of all types live with integrity. Whether you're a parent leading the most important organization on the planet, the family unit, or a CEO for a Fortune 500 company, we believe that who you are matters more than any title you can hold.
Jeff and I bring a wide variety of expertise to the table, whether we're talking about marriage, parenting, our own trauma and stories, leadership and business and organizational development. We're bringing it all in line with helping us shrink our integrity gaps. We're also people. We're married and we're parenting and we're running our own business. So we've got skin in the game. And you're going to hear a lot of our own stories as well as integrated into the interviews and many amazing people that are living wholehearted as we speak. Subscribe to the email list with Christian Parenting. You can go to christianparenting.org/living wholehearted so you don't miss any of the episodes. And sharing is caring, so pass this on to your friends and other parents so they can join the movement.
And I would say even business and organizational leaders that you know, share it with them too.
Today we're going to talk about the Core Values Index and how it applies in parenting. This is an assessment we use in all organizations, whether we're talking about business, marriage, parenting, family, systems. There are so many ways that we use the Core Values Index, but we're going to talk about it specifically about raising our children.
If you'd like to get some background context, our 2nd through 5th podcast deals with the Core Values Index, and will provide some great context for you getting to know this tool better. Specifically today, though, as we think about parenting and we think about our relationships with our kids, those of you that are parents, I can just say personally that outside of the Holy Spirit, the scriptures themselves, that this tool, this practical tool, it's not a Christian instrument by any means, but this thing has God's fingerprints all over it. And it has been the most practical way of delivering on the thing that we're really commanded to do, which is to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves, to actually practically love others. And if you're married, outside of your love for God and your first commitment and allegiance to Him comes your spouse. After that, if you have kids, comes your children. So this is like top 3 relationships. You want to get this right. And of course, every good parent, every loving parent wants to give the very best that they have to their children. And this tool allows you to practically hit the mark with them. So we'll talk a little bit about this, but just think for a moment, if you will, that God in His unique design, of course, is an artist and made every kid different. Every parent says that, right, Tara? I mean, they say that if they have more than one kid, of course, they're different. And that shows up. And so no person has the same fingerprint. Even identical twins don't think the same. They don't talk the same. They don't dream the same or conflict the same, right? And of course, that's reflected here in this instrument that we love and choose because really it's the most reliable out of all the ones that we've ever encountered. The CVI has a 97% test-retest reliability. That means that it really is getting underneath a person's personality, which can change, and environmental circumstances, the highs and lows of life, to unchanging hardwired nature, the reality that who God made them actually, and it's revealed throughout their whole lives, right? The core values don't change. Our environments either support them and that we thrive, or our environments aren't welcoming of those values, and we choose consciously or subconsciously to suppress them. But when we do that, it impacts us and others negatively. It's not good.
So much of the CVI helps us tune in to that design, that unique fingerprint. And one of the scriptures that we love and lean into is Proverbs 22, verse 6. It says, "Start children off in the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." Another translation might say, "Lead a child in the way they are bent, and when they are old, they will not veer from it." One of the things that we maybe misunderstand is that this isn't a promise. There isn't a formula to parenting, though Jeff and I wish there was, because we are oldest children and we want to conquer things. But there isn't a formula per se. There's a lot of trust, a lot of leaning in, a lot of keeping in step with the Spirit. And when we think about the scripture in parenting our children in the way they're bent, it's learning to lean into who did you make our children? And when a child is raised up and is seen and known and loved, actually for who they are, there is a sense of solid confidence that grows within them, and they can be launched into the world and they won't bend from it. They will not veer from it because there's a sense of practice from day one of when they're little all the way to however many years they're living with you. And that varies now today, right?
Yeah, and the sooner you can get this, the better, right? And I thank God all the time. We do, don't we? That he introduced us to this instrument early, like when the kids were just little. And every parent, of course, is trying to notice and figure this stuff out. But with this framework, you can and realizing that the core values that God created within them just show up even before words, right? Our youngest, who has a high builder in her, which is one of the core values, is very action and results oriented. Before she has words, she was always kinesthetically learning, hands-on, needing to get involved in her play. And play, of course, is the way that children communicate by and large, young ones, that is. And probably good for us older kids to be playing more too, but it shows up. You could see her in doing that and needing that. And that was so different than our oldest, for example, who also has some builder, but she has much more balance. And she it's not her only way or her primary way, for example, of learning. She is known to, at the very beginning, picture books. Before she had words, she could sit all day and look with us, and as we were with her, looking at the pictures. And of course, that's translated into her consuming a voracious amount of books, more books than all of us combined in our family. And she's only 13 at this time.
And that comes from her wiring as a banker, where she loves to consume information, and she can do it in enormous ways. And one of the things, even as you're talking about our girls when they were little, how they walked, how quickly they walked, or how they would explore. I remember sitting Adonai, our oldest, on the ground. She would not go anywhere if I put some books in front of her. And I didn't realize that was not normal because she was my first. Then I get my second, and Nevia could never just sit her down because it would take 2 seconds before she was crawling and moving all over. I'm telling you, that girl could not sit still.
Yeah.
And she really has to feel her way through the world. And we've got learning styles that we learn through core values, communication styles, conflict styles. One of the things as a marriage and family therapist that I see a lot in the counseling room, and this isn't a judgment on us parents, it's just more of an observation, and I am guilty of this as well. So I just want to say that out loud before I move in. But we often think that the behavioral issues that our children are dealing with are a problem. Like, something's wrong with my child, please fix it. That's a common statement we get as parents bring in their kid. And really starting to understand your child's wiring, there are some things that actually aren't a problem. They're actually just different than you.
Lots of insights come from understanding
Lots of insights. There's a sense of going, oh, this is part of God's design, and they're going to contribute to the world around them in a way that you can't, Mom and Dad.
But it might drive you nuts, right? If you're wired differently. Give an example of that. Like, what's an example of where kids wired differently and the parent thinks that maybe there's a problem with the kid?
Well, I'll be frank that we often will label a child ADD when they are actually a high builder,
Mhm.
where they're actually going to move and move quickly to action, and they need to be having things done and quickly, and they're antsy to do.
Mhm.
And that's different than ADD,
Yeah.
where there's that hyperactivity or inability to focus. Builders in their nature do not want to sit and talk, do not want to sit and
Yeah.
watch a movie, do not want to sit. I mean, they are wanting to conquer the world around them. And so the beauty of a builder is to be able to give that kid action, things that they can have action and results. Now, if you're not a builder as a parent, it might freak you out because they're moving and quickly. Or the parent who's maybe a builder who likes actions and results, and they have a child who
Mhm.
just loves to sit back and observe the world and is slow. And that is really hard for parents who are
Mhm.
faster and are thinking, you've got a list of chores, just get it done. What's wrong with you, child? Why can't you
Right.
follow it through? And
Right.
it takes them 3 hours when for you, or maybe the other child who's wired differently, takes them 5 minutes. There is a lot of how wiring is playing a role in how our children are living out their day-to-day life. Now, the key for us parents is learning not to shame them for that wiring, but
Mhm.
to learn to speak into them and affirm them, and to be able to maybe,
In their language, in their learning
in their
style.
language and their learning style, but also to give them that growth edge to say, when you know that you don't have a certain wiring in
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
you can see that as beautiful, and also it can be something that you need to grow in, and to be able to lean in to ask for help for others. We're going to be able to explore that a little bit more as we bring in our two daughters next episode. We're going to
Mhm.
let them share how they learn to lean into one another as a family unit.
And to us, and us leaning into them. It's really a remarkable thing we've been practicing for virtually their whole lives. And at this point, there's a lot of good that's coming. And we are in the teenage years now. And we hope that all the practice that we've had thus far is paying off. We see fruit, and it's encouraging. Of course, like you, we're on our knees praying that it continues.
Yeah.
And I would just say too that we see that the key in using and leveraging the wisdom of the Core Values Index is actually hitting and understanding how God wired each of us, and actually delivering messages, no matter what they are, in ways in which our children or each other as spouses or people are wired to receive it. It's more increases the chances of us to actually be more likely heard, and gives people the opportunity to execute even the same tasks in the way in which they were wired to do it, and
Mhm.
be motivated, actually, so it changes things when we hit the mark. And this tool, more than almost anything else I know of, allows us to see people for how God made them. And we still have to choose. Boy, we're at this for over 10 years now in leveraging this instrument in our own circles, right? And we know what to do. We still have to choose to do it. And when we do honor the core values in one another and in others, we and they directly benefit. And when we don't, we pay the price, and we know what's coming. Conflict strategy, whether it's us or in others. And there are 4 primary core values, and there are 4 primary conflict strategies associated with those values. There are 4 learning styles. There's 4 primary contributions that each of these core values are wired to make. This framework is simple enough that you don't have to carry around a huge manual wherever you go. It shows up in real life, and every day and all day long. The 4 values are, we'll start with banker. The core values are knowledge and justice. Bankers are our detail people, right? They are the ones that hold vast amounts of information. Our detail-oriented facts really matter to bankers, and the appropriate use of those facts. They're the fairness people. And parents, if you have a child like this, you know it, because they are the ones from at an early age, when they were asked to share a cookie or whatever, and our oldest is like this. She literally took her time dividing a cookie, and as close to as even as possible. And today, as a teenager, she's still the one that when chores aren't equitable or aren't being done appropriately or whatever, she's going to communicate this.
Mm.
She feels it. And this is beautiful contributions that people are wired to make.
Can I just pause before you
Mhm.
move to the next? One of the shame statements that we tend to say with this particular wiring, that as parents we can catch ourselves. We might say to this child that they're focusing too much on equitable, being fair, and they need to be generous, and they really care about their things. And so we can kind of attribute selfishness to this wiring sometimes, or focusing on things that don't matter. That is
calling them critical or negative.
Them critical, and they definitely lean more towards noticing what isn't versus what is. And so they can come across as the complainer and the negative child, when really there's a beautiful part of what they're trying to help you understand about the world around them. And so that's part of when you understand a banker's heart, you can start really fanning the flame in that, and teaching them how to maybe give disclaimers up front before they're going to offer one of their critiques, or whether they notice a detail's off. And as parents, we can't take it personal. I mean, our daughter's pointing out things all the time that we miss.
She's
and
doing
I just
that.
go, thank you.
Yeah, she's doing that to help make things better. That's what a banker, male or female, that's why they bring their critical eye. It's to make sure that they're trying to make things better everywhere, whether it's in the home and they're little, or they're teenagers, or they're in their job, or they're adults. They bring a critical eye to forward, because they can't. The stronger banker that they are, the higher in their numbers there. The more that this is true, they literally can't help but to see these things. So the bankers are the detailed people. Let's flip up to the builders. And the builders are the action and results people. They are the doers in the community. And you're going to get a sense that God, this is all four of these values kind of represent him in a huge way. And we need all four. And as believers, this really reflects the body of Christ almost more than anything else I know of. Builders are the doers, the action people. They learn by decide and do. They don't learn by lecture. They don't learn by thinking and reflecting or verbally processing. Boy, their words are short and to the point. They learn by actual going and getting after it. And really, they want to use their energy they have to be involved with their own two hands to make a positive difference for other people. And they have great faith, not spiritual faith here that we're talking about, but just a sense of, from birth, an innate sense of confidence that is translated as I know what to do, or I will know what to do. That's why if you have a child who's a builder, or you're married to someone who's a builder, male or female, they're the people that are like, we got this. We got this. And you know what? There's some beautiful things that in the community needs that kind of strength and confidence that to carry us into action when other members of the community can be less prone to step forward or into action, feel more comfortable cognitively thinking about things or processing, right? But of course, if you take that too far, that can come across in their complex style of intimidation, which is where it's not a friendly use of the builder. It's not the right use. We got this can feel like you're dragging us along again. And so as a child, noticing that you put builders in positions to enact and use their energy to get things in action and to results, they light up.
Yeah, so that can look sometimes really frustrating as a parent, because they will act before they think. They're the
Right.
one who just wants to get their homework done, and they're not concerned about crossing all the T's
The
and
details.
dotting the I's.
Yeah.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking, does my kid even care about excellence? They might be the kid that gets in trouble sometimes at school because they're moving around and they're really antsy that the teacher is teaching more and more. And they're like, we got this, we can do this. Let's just get her done and get out to recess.
They can minimize conflict too, right?
Yes, and they can sometimes be the leader of the pack out there at the recess where they are getting groups, because they will say, let's go right, and everybody follows them. There's some confidence about a builder that kids and adults seem to flock to. And so if your child seems to be the ringleader, they probably have quite a bit of builder in them. There's a can-do sense, and we've got to teach them how to lead in the right direction.
That's right, yeah.
Versus leading in the wrong direction. So being able to see the beauty and continuing to affirm, this takes a lifetime of parenting to parent them in the way they should go, in the way that they were designed, and they won't veer from it. And it's actually a hopeful Proverbs. All right, tell us more. What else?
Yeah, well, I just say this, that, bankers, children that are bankers, their faces light up when they are asked to go and help get details or to remember things. And you're going to hear from our oldest daughter, who's the only really banker in our family, in the next episode, a little bit about how that shows up. And of course, God knew what he was doing in giving us her. And we'll hear more about that. But builders love it when they are given opportunities to exert their own energy through action and results and contribute that way to a family system, right? Okay, so in the merchants now, the merchants are the ones that male or female kids out of the womb all the way until through their whole lives are the ones that are going to want to be connecting relationally. And you know this because they're the ones that when they're young, they want to just sit in your lap or be next to you or be when you're walking, walk next to you, or they're reaching out and they want time and they want connection relationally. And this is actually it's so important that they have a person to do this with. This is how they learn. They learn by talking and listening. That's how they learn. That's so different than reading and analyzing of the banker's learning style or deciding and doing of the builder's style, right? Merchants need people. And they just dream and see in color as it relates to vision for people. And a merchant child, and we've got both of our kids have high merchant. And you and I, Tara, as parents, that's our first core value too. And we're really high in that. We dream for people. We think and see what the potential is for people. And we love to create environments that are welcoming. That's why you go into our youngest daughter's room and she has everything in a space that makes you want to be in there and play. And
aesthetics.
Our older daughter does this too. It's all super organized and designed her way, but she is also a high merchant and has that in her as well. It's engaging and she likes to mix it up. Both of them are loving to change their rooms more than we would like, I think.
Yes. So that merchant, in terms of parenting, it can get hard sometimes if they talk all the time.
Yeah.
But you've got a merchant in your home if they just want to tell you, and the stories go on and on and on. And
lots of bunny trails.
Yes, we could tell that Nevi was primarily a merchant when I'd ask her how her day went, and she'd only tell me about recess and the relationships that were going on, and so feels this way, and so feels this way. And I'd ask Adonaiah how the day would go, and she would tell me all the things she learned and the facts about the whale and what the whale does and what it eats. And so you can kind of...
The high banker there.
And so she would give me the details where Nevi's giving me the emotions, and she's building a narrative and a plot. And so these children, they see the world through emotion and they see people. So they're very gifted in relationship skills. They really can tune in and have compassion. And really, we lean into them and helping affirm that oftentimes they need to be in the people type work and contributing. They're the ones that you can kind of say, what do you think's going on in this relationship? And they're going to be able to pick up and tell you things and actually articulate themselves in ways that you might be surprised and being like, you're only 10. How do you put those words together? But merchants are the communicators.
And they are community people. Like, right, okay, here's a fun connection between merchants and bankers. They actually both love people, but for different reasons. This is important because sometimes bankers hear this description of merchants and they're like, wait, I love people too. And a person has some of all four core values within them. But those that have banker, they care about people as well, that people have what they need. That from a conservation of resources, whether it's time, energy, or money, or provision, whatever it might be, bankers care that people have what they need. Merchants just love people. And the more the merrier. The stronger the merchant, meaning the higher in number that they have, and the CVI has a scale of numbers, 0 to 36. There's never been a 0 because, again, some people are some of all four core values. But the lower the number, the less the attributes of that value would be true. The higher the number, the more it'd be true. And oh my gosh, the higher the merchant, the more people they think could be all of their best friends.
And they have a lot of friends,
They
They
do.
need a variety of friends. And so they have a hard time picking who's going to be on their birthday list. And yet, when everybody is there at the birthday party, they're going to feel tender and emotional and watch and feel uncomfortable because they can't make everybody feel apart and there's too many people. And so though that's part of the parenting. You have to teach them how to pursue intentional relationships because they really can be everyone's best friend. That's part of the gift and the curse of a merchant.
Yeah, contrast that with a banker, and they're, when I ask them this, and they say this all the time, they would prefer to have a few friends and go very deep.
Yes.
Merchants think they can go deep with a ton of people.
Yeah.
But a banker will always say the higher the banker they are and also the lower the merchant they are, they'll always say, I prefer, you're right. I actually have a few and I do want to have quality time and go deep with them to be known in that way.
So let's finish with learning about the innovator, and then we'll end with some practical applications of this.
Perfect. Well, the innovator child, thinking about your kids, no matter what age they may be, and people throughout their whole lifespans, innovators are the options people, right? So bankers, the detail people, builders, the action people, merchants, the people, and innovators are the options people. And they just cannot help but see the higher the number, the stronger of innovator they are, the more they're in their head, assessing and solving and thinking about all kinds of things. So this is classic, right? You could be talking to your child and you think that they're listening and they're looking at you, but they're actually thinking about 4 other things going on at the same time. And you're like, and their head's nodding, but you can tell that maybe they're not present. And you're like, hello. And that happened to you as a parent, right, Tara, with our girls. Before they knew what was going to go on, you have that face, and they remember tugging on your leg and saying, "Mommy, mommy."
I'm a high innovator.
And you'd be right there, but you'd be solving all kinds of things, even though you were looking at them. They could tell, right? It's just innovators are loaded with options. And you could present them with anything, and that becomes a starting point. So it might be, hey, we have the following chores to do today in the house, and you get to choose. Well, immediately A is one of the chores that you start thinking about or talking about, and that has several variables around it as to how they might attack A. And innovators are always prioritizing and reprioritizing, getting their lists done from that vantage point. That's so different than the builders who love things one at a time and checking large lists off one at a time. Innovators are prioritizing that large list. And if they don't get it all done, that's okay. At least they got their priorities done.
Yeah. And you can see this with children as they might take a box and they'll turn that box into a whole different toy. And you're going, holy mackerels, how did you create that? They are able to take one object and repurpose it. They take one idea and they repurpose it. And sometimes this is where the shaming can come in as parents, is they're slower, and the more you want them to move faster, the higher their anxieties go up. And in children, we see that in misbehaving. Their anxieties go up and they start screaming, crying, maybe shutting down, saying no. And a higher the innovator, the more anxiety goes up, the faster you want them to move. And so
if they're not ready, if they're ready, it's fine, right?
Yeah. And if it's their idea.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what's hard of learning how to integrate that wiring for an innovator to tap into their wisdom. Oftentimes we see them as old souls. You can see your 10-year-old really thinking and solving problems around the world, or they maybe have a broken computer in front of them and they can figure out how to fix it all on their own. They're problem solvers. And it's really fun to tap into your innovator as a kid. But depending on your wiring as a parent, this can be exciting for you, or it can be extremely frustrating if you're more focused on practical things and they're stuck in their head thinking about the problems of the world. Or I would say innovators are the most creative of the community. So you would see them being extremely out of the box and not following directions. And if you're a parent who follows directions, that would be maddening for you. So learning how to affirm that, to say they're going to take their own windy path to get to the same end result as you. And how do we equip them to see that as a beautiful gift and not as a curse?
And their windy path actually might be the most efficient path that the other members of the community can't see. Like maybe as a parent, you might not see, but they see it. And the really cool thing is when you ask an innovator child, no matter what age they are, for their ideas. Hey, what do you think about this? And would you think about this? We're wanting to plan this vacation and we want to make it fun. Would you take some time to think a little bit about what we could do that might be different than our normal routine? And that's so fun for an innovator to actually have the time, and they might not want to do it right then and there in front of you. They might want to pull away and have their little process, their pros and cons lists, their whiteboard, their little walkabout where they hear themselves talking about the ideas and assessing and solving. They are the most creative in the community as it relates to looking for solutions. Merchants are just as creative, but very tied so to relationships.
So, we've given you a summary related to parenting. Again, if you're intrigued by all this, go back to our episodes number 2 through 5 and make sure that we really do go deeper. And then, if you're interested in actually taking the assessment, I know parents always ask, how old does my kid need to be? We say 5th grade reading level. You can go to the livingwholehearted.com. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see Take the CVI. It gives you a full printout. You can learn more. But let's apply this just a little bit in the practicality before we end. And then we're going to be able to share with you how our daughters are applying this in their own life.
They're going to get to share.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And they're going to keep it real, I'm sure. So before we close, I just want to give you one very simple, practical way that this is applied. Chores. Think about it. If you understand the way your child works and their wiring, and you're setting them up for lifetime, you're not just trying to get the chores done in the house, which as a mom and a dad, I'm sure we appreciate that the chores just get done.
Sometimes.
But at the same time, part of it is using chores as a way to parent your child in the way they should go and the way that they're bent. And one of the things might be utilizing the innovator to come up with a system. Give them a chance to say, we've got 5 kids in our home. We've got this list of chores. Ask the banker to do an inventory of all of the chores that need to be done in the home to make a very nice, pretty list, and all the people and their special talents and gifts. Give that to the banker. Give them a list. Let the innovator then come up with a couple systems. Innovators will give you some options. They don't always decide, but they're willing to give you here's A, B, and C. Let them have fun with it, and don't maybe base it on age. I mean, obviously, a 3-year-old can't do this, but if your 10-year-old's an innovator and you've got a 17-year-old, hand it off to the 10-year-old. Give them some power, and then the jobs that are more detailed and require a little more excellence, those need to be handed off to the more detailed people in your family. The ones that are more builder task oriented, maybe builders can take on a little bit more of the task.
Have a higher capacity.
If we don't care how it turns out, they have a high capacity for lists. And Jeff and I actually do that. I'll say a side note, as a husband and wife team, Jeff has more on his to-do list in terms of tasks. And because I take a little bit longer in my to-do list because I'm prioritizing all the time and I'm really thinking about efficiency in terms of how I want to do it. So if we just need something done, we hand it to the builders, and that's who the builders and the merchants that you're going to need to think about with chores. They need it to be fun. So making sure the innovator knows we need some fun in this. So they need music. They need it to be done together. There needs to be tasks that they can talk, maybe even having some sort of audiobook on at the same time. But it's
mixing it up
where there is a variety and letting go a little bit of how it should look from your lens. Expanding timelines for certain children, knowing that their wirings are not fast and furious and they need more excellence. And also being able to affirm each of the varieties. Jeff, what do you want to add?
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing, and that is just a little note on the fact that builders don't just get stuff done if you don't care about the quality. Like I heard you say that a little bit. We really care about the quality, but we get a ton done. And our view, it may not be as highly detailed or excellent per se on specific things that do require that, but I will say this, that builders love to get a lot of things done, and they love to be proud of it at the end, and they love others to be proud of it as well. That's the personal energy to make a positive difference. So that's coming from a 21 a builder that just needed to communicate that.
I love it. Well, that was a good reframe. I didn't see, even just in that small statement that I said, I didn't realize that could actually come across as shaming. So I appreciate that, Jeff, because yes, builders do care that it's done well, but we're talking about children. So children are learning this process. You've had many years of learning what it's like to do something fast and not quality, and that you've learned to appreciate that.
It takes time to learn. And
I imagine you as a 10-year-old getting it done and going out and playing.
And there's a difference between the importance of taking out the garbage in terms of doing that with excellence and actually planning a family vacation with excellence. There's a difference in consequences either way in those two situations. So,
well, I appreciate where you're at as a parent. And so I hope you're hearing this from a lens of grace. that the first step in parenting our children well in the way they should go is learning about our own wiring, because our wirings, we have a bent.
It's
right?
impacting our kids.
It is. And most of us parents just parent the way that we were parented, or the way our wiring, like we value the things we value. And so being able to learn who you are, learn who your spouse is, and then be able to start just noticing your children and applying some of this. If you want to go deeper, we've got a lot more there. So join us next time, because we're excited to share with you what our kids actually think and how this tool is making a difference in them understanding God's design for them and the way it's impacting the way they live their lives.
This podcast is powered by Living Wholehearted, Courageous Girls, and the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. Thank you for joining us in this critical movement of shrinking our integrity gaps between what we preach and live.